Um, I think we met at the chamber meeting. Well, I met through your husband, and then we met at a chamber event. I think I was looking for ways to grow my business, um, and I'm always into meeting new people. And I wanted to sit down and talk with you because I thought maybe I might be able to grow my business by having you use some of my products. But then you ended up talking to me about One Light Ahead, and I think you won on this one.
Well, we've actually been having conversations about all of it. We had some
But we
major
we have we
transitions.
have actually, but I'm just saying. I mean, I started with One Line Ahead out of that, and that was a great experience. So that was. I initially went through your MLC coaching, I believe it was. I think I always get those initials mixed up, so I hope I said that
You
correctly.
said it perfectly.
But I started with your MLC, and going through the introduction to your habit finder material, and that was an incredible eye-opening experience that really kind of opened my touched the craving in my heart for authenticity and wanting to explore that a little more. And I went through that, and then I went through that again, and then I just completed a coaching program with my wife and a couple of other couples, and that was an incredible experience, and really had some positive effects out of that one. And I'm set to go on another MLC here, so it's kind of been a ongoing journey of as we talk about in our sessions, peeling back the onion, and been very rewarding.
Lenny, you have so much depth to you. I'm really appreciative to have you with us. As I shared with you, our Freedom Fridays are all about the freedom to talk about whatever we want. So I really want everybody to get to know you, get to experience your expertise. And ironically, we met through the chamber, and you were an ambassador with the chamber for a while. You went through the EDGE program through the Roseville Chamber, which was was very thankful to assist with. And that, speaking of initials, right? And then once you dove into the MLC and into the deep dive of the Habit Finder group, you've really learned a lot about how you want to show up with your natural genius. So will you share how that's happened for you personally, professionally, etc.?
Yeah, I will. And just a little background on me. So just so I can answer that question in context.
Please.
So for many years, I've always had a very entrepreneurial drive. When I was 14 years old, I started my first job, which was a paper route. I went out and I had my paper route. I had 100 papers. Interestingly enough, that drove my whole family ended up. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, and we ended up turning that one paper drive ended up growing into a family business where we were delivering like 2,000 papers a day.
Wow.
Crazy amount of papers. And I just really wanted some money to go play video games, because that's what we used to do back then, is you just had to spend a quarter to play a game. And
spend a quarter, I love it.
Oh yeah, I know, right? It's time to I'm totally dating myself, but I don't really care. I'm old, so that's the way it goes.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So anyone watching Facebook probably can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I been very entrepreneurial, also, but was also very creative. I was a kid. I was always in the drama programs, trying to find creative ways, drawing and doing all kinds of creative things. But somewhere along life, in fact, I actually, early in my early adult life, I looked into art school. I wanted to become, go into artistic profession or creative professions. It was just something natural inside of me. It was really something I was craving. But a lot of people told me you can't make money in art. You can't be money being creative. You need to go do something that makes sense. You need to go do something logical. And coming from the lifestyle that I came from, and the life and the environment that I was in, I didn't know what else to think. I mean, I wasn't one at the time. I was more of a follower and didn't really have enough perspective on life to think any differently. So that's what I did. And I started pursuing entrepreneurial avenues and other avenues, getting a job or whatever. And in fields that just really didn't do anything for me. It was just a matter of earning an income, and it became a very strong, a very tough and incredibly difficult life. But my creativity has always been trying to squeeze out wherever I am. So no matter how logical I tried to be, I was always finding ways to be creative. And I found myself in positions where I would, you know, come up with a creative marketing campaign for a business, for, you know, a company I would work with. Or I would end up, you know, I actually ended up opening up a watch repair business that I grew from nothing to having two stores and generating $250,000 a year. It was an incredible life, and I did a lot of creativity stuff in there. Like, creativity was always coming out in that venture, and even now, as I end up marketing insurance, which is like, it can't get any more boring than that. I still find ways to be creative in the midst of such a boring topic. A necessary topic, I mind you, but boring. And
Absolutely.
you know, if somebody can go into the weeds on that one and put an audience to sleep quick. Like,
There's
so
all kinds of conversations that need to happen for businesses,
great,
yet sometimes they don't recognize it till sometimes
right.
sadly it's too late,
So, and that's
right?
where creativity really comes into play, is being able to creatively communicate that in a way that it's not boring and in a way that it's easy to understand. So, but you know, as I've been going through the program, I've been getting in touch with my authenticity and kind of bringing back some of these memories from things back in the past where I was wanting to go to art school and wanting to be more creative. And I suddenly got the urge to go back to school and actually pursue a master's degree. And like, as I researched possible master's degrees out there, based off of my career history that I have already put in place, I mean, without having to reinvent the wheel, like, what can I build on what I've done already? I ended up discovering an entrepreneur-based program out of a school in Georgia, and I got accepted into that master's program. And now I'm actually pursuing, and I've actually tapped into the reality that you know, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I finished it when in the subject of marketing. So I'm like, let's re-tap back into that marketing side of things, you know. And marketing is a really funny animal, because you can get really lost in logic and in reason, or you can get, you know, or you can tap into a lot of the creativity, advertising, coming up with content and that stuff, which I like that stuff better. I do the logic and reason stuff okay, but I like that stuff better. And so that's kind of what I've been doing, and kind of working with developing, you know, kind of developing this creative side of my career, and really trying to explore where that will go. But so far it's been great, been very well received, and very excited about the people who are coming out and saying, hey, I need some help with this. And, you know, so in fact, some of our other members have spoken up and have me helping them in some of the people that I met through MLC. So,
And
that's
that is
great.
a running theme. Everyone we interview for the MLC always says the relationships that they get to build in our community is longstanding. And it's been a wonderful gift to be able to provide that platform for community, as well as to provide structures and systems. And yet, Lenny, you're really powerful at developing some of your systems and structures, getting you to buy into number analysis, etc. I mean, that was just a natural part of your job. And yet you spoke a little bit about the creativity side, the awareness of, and the one question I wanted to ask you about, and it'll kind of cover overall where we're headed, is, you know, what perceptions you had to overcome. And you spoke about how many people would tell you you couldn't make money, you couldn't blah, blah, blah. And you made money in other ways, and you built businesses in other ways. You've had some life happen along the way. And you discovered, you know, there's a natural side to you, a natural gifting, an authentic side of you that you really want to explore and live out at a higher level. And tell me about the process you've gone through with that overcoming. I mean, you've attended our summit, you've attended the events. I mean, you've been part of our community for a while now. Is there any of the big aha moments, anything you would recommend to anyone else? A lot of questions there.
Yeah. So, in that course, I mean, I grew up in a very dysfunctional home.
Mhm.
And I remember I was about 26 years old. I had a guy who was kind of playing a role as a mentor in my life at the time. And he said to me, Lenny, you're chronologically, you're 26 years old. You've kind of reached the maturity level of an adult, but emotionally, I'd put you at like 12.
Wow.
Like you are not an emotionally mature person. And that kind of hit me square between the eyes. Like, wow, like, and I appreciate that man. He's since his passed. He lost a battle to cancer last year, but he was the father figure that would be honest to me, with me in moments when I needed the honesty, and so I've been on a journey towards authenticity at some level for most of my life, trying to shed the bad habits or bad
Mm.
programming or the negative processes that have gone on, or at no fault to my parents, because they picked them up, because and my dad was somebody who was trying to shed the ghost that he grew up with, right? So I'm not really like bitter or angry about any of that. I'm just saying there's bad stuff that kind of was introduced at a very young age, and a lot of it. And there was a lot of it. And I've spent probably the better part of the last 25 years trying to dig down layer by layer, and going through lots of layers, trying to uncover a lot of that. When I entered MLC and entered the Habit Finder program, um, what I really appreciated about it was it kind of helped us do the deep dive real quick, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, so we're going in and now we're going down for those core layers, those center layers. What is those things? I remember, one of my favorite exercises you have us do is the life wheel. I talk
Mhm.
about the life wheel all the time. And I love the life wheel because when I initially did it, my wheel looked more like, I don't know, a geometric shape that does not exist. Like it was
Something.
all kinds of sharp angles, and it was definitely not round. That's for
Mm.
sure. Like if things were not balanced, which my first awareness on that was my life's out of whack. I don't have things in balance. There's a reason why, things are not going well at home versus, why I'm struggling with, money, and why my business isn't running the way I want it to. There's reasons for all this. And it has a lot to do with, my, um, has a lot to do with just my life being out of balance. And so it really kind of opened my eyes there. A couple of other exercises you did just kind of really tapped into some core subconscious desires that I have, and um, and how that really made things realize that um, where I realized that we subconscious things where I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Miss Beth doesn't know you're on a Facebook Live yet, so she's
Yeah.
trucking along, visiting. But great to see her as well. The awareness of, and thank you for so many people as a coach, and I love to say great coaches. They go through a process of recognizing that each individual has their own layers to work through, and the more that they go through them, the more that they get to own them as their own. So a coach gives them the perspective to recognize it is their tools, it is their process, it is their journey. Your authentic self is your choice. How you choose to show up in that, how you use it in your business, how you use it in your career, how you share it with your family. You've made huge strides with that. You have a wonderful large family to make an impact with as well. And so going back to that overcoming perceptions, educate me any perceptions that you would want to share that's been the major one for overcoming.
Um, I don't know how to put a label on it. But over a course of our life, we're told you were this or you were that or whatever. But as I have gone through the search for authenticity and to learn who I really am, to tap into, as we call it, the natural genius, to find my core, like, who am I? What is it that impassions me? What is it that drives me? What is it that, my soul seeks to, contribute to this world?
Mm-hmm.
And I have constantly run into over and over and over again that all those things that everybody else told me that I was, everything else that everyone told me that I was supposed to be, or all those other expectations, if we call it that, or that were placed on me by others that have nothing to do with me, have nothing to do with my existence, have nothing to do with what is. There was just other people's perceptions of me or what I should be doing. Turned out to be false. And for so much of my life, I've actually spent time pursuing those expectations, not to make them happy, but just because I believed that they knew more better than I did.
Mm-hmm.
They knew more than I did. And so I think, without being able to put a label on it, I think the ultimate over perception that I have, and that I wish that I would have realized much earlier in life, is to follow your heart. Your heart is screaming out to you at a very young age. This is what you should be doing. And, we can choose to allow ourselves to get distracted by the other voices in our life that say, no, that's not what you should do. And allow other people to control us into those directions that they want us to do. And really, honestly, if you follow your heart and you really kind of pursue a path of saying, how can I make that happen? No matter how big or ugly it looks, because sometimes our heart demands some big things out of us. Mm-hmm. But if you sit there and you take a minute and say, this is what my heart's really telling me, and just be really in touch with what your directions are, or the directions your heart is giving you, you'll never have a regret. You'll never, ever have a regret. Now, if you start listening to other people's expectations, well, then maybe that might be a different outcome. But
there's so many pieces to what you just said, and there's a couple of things I want to point out, and then ask you one last question about that. Yet, and we could go into whole layers about that, and the awareness of getting what your natural gifting, your natural skills, and how you can have the courage and the discipline to dream a bigger dream, and be willing to step the steps and trust the people you surround yourself, the source that you get your energy and joy from, etc. And it's ironic, I'd add one layer to it just for our audience is, I had a mentor that said to me years ago, we were at a Get Motivated event in Sacramento at the largest arena at the time there. And a friend of mine, we served as presidents on the local region council, and he had walked up to me, and my mentor that I was speaking with, he says, April, I totally see you standing on the stage as the keynote for this event, or excuse me, as the MC for this event. And my mentor turned to him and said, Bull, you know what? He said, I expect her to be the keynote, not just the MC. And that statement, that phrase drove me to have the inspiration to want to be on such a stage. Now, because again, I had to also overcome my own stage, my own mindset, my own limitations of, I can serve this stage, and my stage is much larger. And I think that's what all of us have. One of my coaches has spent a lot of time, you've met him, reminding people, determine what your stage is and get on it and own it and live it, and be willing to allow people to hear you, to trust you, and to, and even sometimes, iron sharpens iron, and we get to help build each other to a level to where we're called to be. And I would just love to end on that note of anything you'd want to share to encourage another individual. You are powerfully owning your journey moving forward. You're making some big steps and aligning all the things that you get to serve in. And I think that's the one thing I really want to make sure people know is that you really come from a place of not just learning how to be more authentic for yourself, but learning how to provide people with the resources you have that will best honor what they need and what value you can provide.
So what I'd like to say to encourage people is don't feed the fears.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I mean by that is growing out of our peeling back the layers of our onions, changing our world, whatever kind of allegory we want to apply to the journey. It's scary. It's terrifying. It's, sometimes death defying. And there's layers there that we don't want to look at. There's layers, there's habits there that we don't want to change, because what happens if we change? We've always done that. That's always been the way it was. And we don't feed the fears. I heard a story once about a wife, and she was making a roast. She takes out the roast out of the fridge, and she cuts the end off one end. She cuts the end off the other end, puts it in the pan, puts it in the oven. The husband was just walked in and saw her do that, and he thought it was odd. And he was like, why are you doing that? Why are you cutting the ends off that roast and putting it in the oven? Like, that's good meat right there. Like, why are you doing that? She's like, I don't know. Mom's always done it that way. That's how I thought you cooked a roast. So she became curious, and she went to her mom, and she said, Mom, when you make a roast, you cut one end off, and you cut the other end off, you put it in the pan, you put it in the oven. Why are we cutting the ends off of this roast? And Mom's like, I don't know. My mom's always done that. That's just how I've always learned to make a roast. So grandma's still alive. Grandma's still alive. And so Mom goes to grandma and says, Mom, why do you cut the ends off the roast? Well, you see, the pan I was cooking was too small. So I had to cut the ends off the roast to put it in the pan. So my point is that there's times where we don't want to make changes. We don't want to, not that we don't want it, we just don't make changes because it's the way it's always been, but it's not really necessarily the purpose for that now. Like, we have a bigger pan. We're dealing with better equipment. We got better stuff going for us. We don't need that particular procedure or that particular habit or that particular experience anymore. We just need to be able to put the roast in the pan and put it in the oven. There's no more need to waste that extra meat. And when I say don't feed the fears, I'm talking about the fact that there's so many things we don't know about. We got to evaluate, like, why are we actually doing this? What are we doing? And examine, like, what would happen if I changed that? Is it really going to be as dramatic or as negative as my paranoid brain is telling me it's going to be? Oftentimes, no. So what I like everyone to leave on is, don't feed the fears, because oftentimes most of the reason why we haven't done something or accomplished something, and I mentioned earlier in this call that we were doing, I then applied for a master's degree. I can't tell you, because you were walking that journey with me, but that was a terrifying experience applying for master's program. I had a lot of fears. I had a lot of things telling me, Lenny, you don't deserve this. Like, this is not you. Lenny, this is like, you're going on master's. Like, there's some kind of, like, I don't know, pedestal attached to a master's program. It's
actually a rare for how many people actually graduate from a master's degree program. And it is a wonderful gift, and yet
it's an accomplishment, and I'm not trying to minimize the event at all. What I'm trying to communicate is the fears that go into it. If I would have fed them, would have stopped me from accomplishing it.
Agreed.
Just dealing with the application process was terrifying. I still haven't gone through the master's program yet. I'm just enrolled at the moment, so we'll see where that goes. But my point is not, the master's point. My point is that I would not have even thought myself eligible to be a master's program if I had not, if I had listened to the fears that I was going through and not completed the application process. So that's my big, if you're going to take something away from my testimony and my story, take that one away. Don't feed the fears.
And Lenny, I think the other thing to add to that, which is such a huge gift, is, from personal experience, even when you're hitting some of the resistance, and we've had some exercises and assignments that you've gone through hitting some resistance, and recognizing and diving in and asking yourself the tough question, what's the resistance about? What are the challenges? And you went through that in the application process. And I just want to compliment you for overcoming it, committing to it, and completing it, among many of the other exercises that you did through our journey and through our future journeys that we will be part of. And you're a gift. We're thankful for you sharing with the audience, and making sure that each person knows it doesn't matter where you're at in the journey. It doesn't matter what level you're at in the journey, you know, how many successes you've had, or how many challenges or failures. It's part of the journey, and we're all gifted to take the journey. So thank you for reminding people that. We're very thankful you joined us. And we want to encourage everyone to have a wonderful weekend, to continue to find their faith and their belief system that will honor their gifts and their ability to move forward. With that, we will sign off. Everyone have a wonderful Freedom Friday and a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye, everyone.